Hey everybody, Dan here from Dan's Millionaire Code, and I got like a super killer, nerdy, awesome Grandmaster Jedi friend of mine, Kirk Ouimet, incredible dude. Let me give you a little bit of his bio. This is killer here. Okay, so he founded a computer vision company, Scan, back in the day. 2015 is when you transacted that, right?
Yeah.
$54 million deal. He had 60 engineers, shipped products all over the place to what, 250 million?
Yeah. That's
users?
Snapchat. Yeah.
To Snapchat. So Snapchat was the act, they bought it.
Yeah.
Right? So that was fun. And here's the big one. You entered Bitcoin at about $1?
Yeah. I bought my first 500 Bitcoin for $500
Wow.
total. And then I proceeded to lose all of them in Mt. Gox.
Well, you're getting that back soon, aren't
I
you?
am getting it back this year. They
Did you get
actually
all of
emailed
it
me
back,
today.
or?
No, 20%. So
Still rad, dude.
I know. So $500 probably is going to end up with me getting around 80 Bitcoin back after it's all finally settled.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
We can get some energy drinks and sushi. Yeah. And I'll treat you. But that's great. That's celebratory.
Yeah.
How long has it been since Mt. Gox?
10 years.
Wait.
Wait, no. 12 years. It's been a long time.
That's like 200 years.
Yeah, in crypto.
Yeah.
I like it because I've been kind of like a forced holder. I haven't been able to sell those. So,
That's great. Oh, yeah. Forced savings.
yeah.
That's wonderful. That's pretty exciting. So it's coming out. Wow. That's cool. All right. And now we've been meeting on different things. You're also, we brought you in as an advisor for our fund, Ugly Unicorn Fund. So thank you for your wisdom. But the weirdest thing that I don't know if we can, I don't want to talk about it unless you want to talk about it, but you're creating some interesting new products
Yes.
that interface some new technology into supplements and things.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to talk
Yeah.
about that?
Oh, yeah, we absolutely do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk about, I feel like it'd be fun to talk about artificial intelligence.
Yes.
And just where that's going, because we're starting to hit a inflection point in technology, which in our lifetime, I think that we've only seen a couple of these, and like you and I have witnessed them. We've probably, one of the first ones was just the advent of the internet itself,
Big.
which was huge. What was your first experience with the internet? Do you remember?
Mine was, well, I had dial-up at a 300 baud modem, like war games, and that was bulletin board systems.
Yeah.
That's pre-internet, right? Then you could log on to chat boards
Yeah.
on there and just talk to other computer nerds, and this is kind of funny. This is like pre-meme, but everyone was like, upload the most weirdest, strangest computer nerd meme contest, and they were giving away a Hayes HST modem, the new 1200 baud or something weird. That was my internet.
Do you remember there was an era of the internet for about, when it first started, where it was very eclectic, and like the types of people that were on the internet, it was definitely a vibe that was, it was more leaning towards like the hacker, the enthusiast, someone who cared enough to be able to get through all of the headache of trying to connect and interact with other people. And I think that shifted away with the advent of the iPhone. And I think that,
Yeah.
do you remember that? Like it was, the internet was kind of like a nerdy thing that wasn't really useful to the general public, but the people who were into it were really into it. I think that for me, gaming is what pulled me in to care a lot about the internet, because to be able to connect to your friend's house, to be able to play a game with them was a huge deal, and like made it so much more fun. And then I think after the iPhone came out, now suddenly everybody had access to the internet. And what was the iPhone's first killer application that really made it special? Maybe it was email, or maybe that was more along the line of the BlackBerry. Was it a full mobile browser on the iPhone that really?
Yeah, that
take
was
off?
nice. The little mobile Safari,
Yeah.
and then Candy Crush,
Yeah.
Angry Birds, stuff like that.
Basic games on your phone, yeah. So I think like we went through the internet, and that's one that we share. And then I think that the next big one was the iPhone, which was the miniaturization of a lot of the computer technology, and a really smooth interface on top of it that made, and that being an internet connected device was huge. And now we're coming up on this new wave of of artificial intelligence, which I think is going to be, by the end of this decade, we're going to look back and realize that it's crazier than the internet and the iPhone combined.
Oh yeah.
I think it's going to be absolutely insane, and we're already trending in that direction right now. So I could talk about that for.
So do you think we're all gonna be like Wall-E? Like we're all gonna be floating around on these little automated chairs and be spoon fed and be all globular or whatever, because we don't move anymore and we're all controlled by robots?
I think that we need to talk about what the future looks like, because, well, let's maybe just, should we just dive in?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, yeah, all right. Okay,
it.
so let's just kind of walk through what's going to happen. So over in 2012, the first AI algorithm really started to take off. And basically, for computer scientists, the trouble that we've had the entire time of coding is that in order to code a particular application, or in order to make something useful, you have to have full understanding of the program space that you're entering in. So let's take, for example, one of the most difficult things for us to do is to do speech to text. We're taking all of our words that we're saying right now, and it's creating this waveform that, first of all, that's difficult to describe, and there's lots of different ways to do that. And we went through, do you remember the period of time where there was burning CDs and we had WAV files that were massive?
Oh yeah.
And then finally someone came out with MP3s, which took this song that would normally be 70 megabytes in waveform and then compressed it down to 3 megabytes.
Mm-hmm.
That was a huge deal too.
Yeah.
Just being able to listen to music as you go. That wasn't possible until we had the MP3 format to be able to compress audio data. But then we have this really hard problem of how do I take every word that I'm saying and every word that you're saying and convert that into text? So a typical computer science approach would be, let's analyze every different aspect of the waveform, and let's start to create things that match on patterns, and let's then it was very messy, because if I said a word different than you said a word, then our code would break down.
This is like Dragon Naturally Speaking
Yeah,
days?
that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Where microphone.
Yeah, you wanted to be able to dictate to a computer, and it was like good but not great.
Yeah.
So in 2012, these computer scientists started researching these black box algorithms, and what that means is that instead of having to know how to code something and having to understand it, instead all that you would have to do is have labeled training data. So what I mean by that is we would record our conversation, and then we would have a human go in, and the human would go and transcribe everything that we said to each other. So then you have an hour of audio data, and then you have a written transcript that has every word that we said labeled to that. So if you take that data and and let's say that you get hundreds of thousands of hours of spoken word plus human translation of the spoken word into text, then you can feed that into an AI model and have the AI model learn which words in the text form map to which words in the spoken form. And the way that this works is you can just imagine that you have a bunch of these neural weights. And so we've modeled how the brain communicates and weighs information in software. And you need very expensive GPUs, and you load all of the data in the GPUs, and then you have it do this training where it basically will look at the audio data and look at the text, and it'll start to make associations between the two.
Is that what's happening with like Siri dictation and all that now on a server level, because all that stuff's already pre-translated, right?
Yes.
And that's why it's pretty darn accurate.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but
we went from like 70% accuracy with Dragon Naturally Speaking to now I think that whenever I dictate to Google or to Siri, I think that their accuracy, at least on their benchmarks, is 99%.
pretty good.
Which means that 99 words out of 100 are going to be detected, and we're going to notice that one word that isn't perfect, but it's only going to get better over time. And so the interesting thing about that is that we didn't have to understand every little detail of how someone speaks, and instead we're able to just say, let's get a lot of training data, and if the computer's giving us wrong answers, that's just a matter of getting more training data. And that's not hard, because we'll just record audio and then transcribe it and then feed that in. So this ended up being incredibly useful in ad targeting, because ad targeting is a very difficult computer science problem. Here I have Dan on Snapchat or Instagram. My experience was at Snapchat, but here you are on Instagram, and it's a very important problem for me to know, first of all, what piece of content should I serve you next to keep you in the app? And then the second problem is, out of all of the millions of ads I can show you, which one are you going to click on? Because that's how I get paid. So in the beginning, we're going to treat it just like speech to text, and we're going to say, all right, well, let's try to gather and collect every little bit of data that I know about Dan, and let's start writing these very like custom algorithms. They're going to try to like fine tune based on what we know about you. And with this concept of this black box AI algorithm, we can say, screw all of that. What we're going to do is we're just going to log everything. We're going to log your location. We're going to log the time of day. We're going to log your scroll offset as you're scrolling up and down. We're going to log how long you're sitting on something. We're going to log every single thing that you click on. And that is all training data for the AI. And then we're going to train a model specifically for you. And this is what every major social media company does. They have probably over 100 megabyte model allocated to every one of their users. And that entire model, its whole purpose is, how do I serve Dan the right content, or any of the customers the right content, and how do I serve them ads? And it's constantly fine tuning.
You know, on Instagram, when you get an ad and you can say, hi ad, it's irrelevant, you know, and that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's like way off.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
You know?
So that kind of goes back to this whole idea of how you train these models is you have to be collecting data, and you have to know, if you end up clicking on an ad, that's a very heavy weighted signal.
Oh, yeah.
Of like, he's definitely interested in this. And then you'll often get retargeted on that. But generally speaking, these AIs, we're essentially pointing one of the most intelligent things that we've ever made, and we're telling it, how do I get more of your time, and how do I get more of your money? And so just imagine that you have a team of 1,000 psychologists constantly evaluating you and trying to understand who you are and what you like. This is what's happening in the social media space. One of the things that we've seen just in the, I think that we could say that social media took off after the iPhone launched. So I'm going to say that maybe social media started to like catch its wave around 2012, 2014. And then it's been riding ever since. Unfortunately, because these are black box algorithms and they're just trying to get time and attention, it turns out the thing that gets the most time and the most attention is the most controversial and horrible things.
Oh, yeah.
Because our brains are completely weighted towards, hey, what's bad going on in our tribe? Like, what are all the horrible things that could happen? And
that's screwing up all of our brains, right?
it is screwing up.
It's making us all sad and all angry.
Well, I think it's hurting teens specifically because they're entering this world, and they're entering the world where they're engaging with technology at a very young age. And if like we grew up in a tribe, we'd grow up with, the 150 people around us, and that's what we would be weighing ourselves against, and that's how we would be comparing ourselves against. And then you'd go to high school or you go to junior high, and you'd be bullied, or you'd have whatever interactions you're having, and then you'd come home, and then you'd watch TV and play sports or do whatever you're going to do with your friends, and that was your day. And now you go to school, and you come home, and you have a full feed of everyone, not only at your school, but everyone in the state and in the country, and every cool thing that they're doing that you're not a part of. And now you're starting to be like, well, maybe my life kind of sucks. Whereas before, that was never even an issue for me or for you growing up. We never had to go through that. And so, and not only that, but of the content that is being shown to the kids, the stuff they're being shown is like very controversial and emotionally charged, which is leading them to have very intense emotional experience in social media, which I then think is going to have effects that are going to reverberate over the next 50 years.
Maybe there's an opt-in when you go in and it says happy, non-political content preferred.
Well, so this is what Elon is trying to do with Twitter by open sourcing the algorithms and letting you kind of pick the experience that you want on Twitter and let that be a known thing, which I think is a really noble effort, because it's basically saying, by default, and this is something that I learned early on at Snapchat, and so there's this concept called A/B testing, and A/B testing is I'm going to show one user a certain experience, I'm going to show another user another experience, those are my A test and my B test, and then I'm going to do that to 100 million people, and whichever test results the behavior that I want them to do, they click something or they do some action, then that's going to be how I'm going to like create and structure my app. So one of the early things that we learned with A/B testing is that if you rely on A/B testing for all of your company decisions, you're going to end up with a porn site every single time. Yes, because if you show people pornographic content or things that like even softcore, they're going to click on that. So then if you start saying, well, I'm going to make all my decisions based on what people click on.
It's all going to be filth.
That's what you're going to end up with. So you can't trust the A/B tests, or you can, but what you're going to do is you're going to end up just having a completely pornographic experience, which is how a lot of people's Instagram and social feeds end up being.
Yeah.
As you're going through, you're like, how come I'm just seeing all of this? It's like, well, you engaged with it once. Or twice or multiple times, and so now that's what's the algorithm is like. That's what's going to get you to stay in the app.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing where it's like the creators of these social media experiences, if they're using black box AI algorithms and they're not hand tuning what you're getting, then you're immediately going to devolve into the dregs of society.
It does let you in your Instagram feed now click on something and just say, I want to see less of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so now mine is all like pugs and rifles and 4x4s and
Yeah.
you know?
So this is something that, so talking about my experience at Snapchat, when I started at Snapchat, we had around 20 million people using the app every day for 20 minutes a day. Then we went through and over our entire time of building it and engineering it out, we used A/B tests, we used AI, we used everything we could to try to get as much time as we could of people spending time in the app and engaging. And by the time I retired from Snapchat after 5 years, when I left, we had 250 million people, so we had 10x'd our user base. They were using the app for 44 minutes-ish a day. So we had doubled the time in app and we'd 10x'd our user base. And so it was like pretty crazy that we had 250 million people, 44 minutes a day. You do the math, that's a lot of time spent in that application. And I was just hanging out with my friends from Snapchat a couple months ago, and we were talking about TikTok. So TikTok has about as many users as Snapchat, but their average time in app per day, do you want to take a guess at what it is?
A few hours?
2 hours and 40 minutes per day.
Jeez.
Yeah.
It's like a full-length movie.
Yeah, every single day, and that's the average. So you have other users who are in there for 4 or 5 hours. You have some users who are in for an hour, but on average it's 2 hours and 40 minutes.
That's a lot, man. That's like crap.
It is. They're calling it digital coding, and basically it's taking advantage of the fact that, first of all, our brains, we want short form like content that is like candy. You have maybe 1 second, if that, when content shows up, if you're going to watch it or not. And everything is preloaded and pre-cached, and so as you're swiping through it, you're just getting endless entertainment as you're swiping through TikTok. And one of the things that is interesting about how the AI algorithm works is they're letting the AI drive the entire thing, and they're like, whatever is going to let people watch the most, we don't care what it is, like, let them rip. And the AI has learned, I need to pace you, so I'm going to show you a bunch of stuff in this type of theme. So maybe you're going to get like conspiracy theory videos. You'll get like 3 to 10.
Yeah. You get those.
Yeah, and then it's going to swap it up, and now you're going to get a funny cat video or some pet videos. Then it's going to give you some softcore type material, and you may flip through that, or you may spend time, and then it's going to rotate into funny, and then it's going to rotate into dance moves. And so not only is the AI engaging with you just for that current moment of, hey, I'm jumping in the app and I want to play.
It's modulating your dopamine receptors, man.
Yes, that's exactly what it's doing.
Like the Borg.
Yes.
Get through the shields.
So, and it's like, this is how I'm going to get you for 2 hours and 40 minutes, is we're going to ride this wave. Now,
That's so bad for your brain, man.
Well, probably. Like, we're going to learn that. But what's interesting is the same AI that is regulating our feeds to these social apps, the foundation of it was really explored in 2018 and 2019 with the Google Brain team. So the Google Brain team said, we're going to test how good our black box algorithms are, not at doing speech to text or some of these other hard problems, but we're going to go and we're going to train on the ancient Asian game of Go. And so the European kind of equivalent as far as popularity was chess. But chess has a finite board, and there's only so many moves that you can do with the different pieces on the board. With Go, the board is much larger, and the number of pieces that can be moved and how they can be moved is, let's say that in chess, I don't know what it is, let's say that there's like 1 billion possibilities, and in Go, it's going to be trillions.
Wow.
So it's like a typical computer approach of like iterate through every move, every chess piece, and iterate through every potential move isn't possible in Go because it's too many, the branching problem, it branches out into too much. So it's a perfect target for an AI to come in and learn how to play. So they created this thing called a GAN, which is, they basically took this Go concept and they said, for any given state of the board of Go, we're going to allow you to predict what the next move should be. And it doesn't matter if you're moving black pieces or white pieces, but just predict what should the next move be. And then then they let it play against itself for the equivalent of like millions of years in computer time. So it's just like playing against itself, and it knew that the winning outcome was what it should be trained for successfully. So it's like, I'm going to try to put the pieces in such a way that one side of the board wins. And so you start out with a very tiny neural network. And if you were to represent this in, I'm going to be a little bit technical if that's okay. So like you're going to start out with something that's maybe a few megabytes in size, like really tiny. And if you were to open up this file of this digital brain, it would be a bunch of numbers, and they call them vectors, and it would be basically a bunch of numbers and how they relate to each other. You can kind of think of it like a neuron in your brain is connected to many other neurons, and the weight of their connection to each other is represented by a number. So if you have two neurons close together, strongly connected, that would be a very tightly coupled neuron. But if you have one that's loosely connected to a bunch, that would be connected, and then the weight between it would be softer. And so now you have it play this game of Go, and as it starts to get winning conditions, it starts to adjust the weights to make them stronger or weaker based on whether or not the outcome is winning or losing. And so every iteration, it's readjusting the weights of that file. As this happens over and over and over again, that digital brain grows from megabytes into gigabytes as it starts to have more neurons to keep track of more potential moves or failure cases. And you can't debug these things easily. Like if you open up the neural network file, it's just a bunch of numbers.
It's still going?
They're being trained. All of the GPUs in the world right now are being trained. Like any free GPU that's available is being used to train it.
So this project's still going with Go?
They already won. So I'll finish the story on Go. So they trained it, and they put probably $1 million of GPU time into training this Go model, and then they brought it to Asia, and they said, bring us the 5 best Go players in the world. And like Go is a serious business in Asia. So they had this whole Google, and so they named their player AlphaGo, and that was their AI one. And they brought it in, and they had the top players play it, and AlphaGo made them look like children.
Oh, geez.
It completely destroyed all of them.
Holy crap.
So and after they were defeated, they were like, it was setting up moves in the early game that you would never think it would use, that it ended up using in the late game to completely defeat them. And they're like, we're going to have to be studying for years all of the different moves that it did, because it created new strategies that we've never even seen before.
It's crazy, huh?
And so
here, I got a looming question just to shift gears, because
this
is incredible how AI is developing. What does your crystal ball say as far as where AI is going to take us in the next 20 years, and also blockchain?
Yeah.
I'd like to say, again, this is not financial. This is like...
NFA.
Yeah. Not financial advice. This is all like theory.
So I think this foundation of understanding how these neural networks are trained will lead us into being able to answer that question like really comprehensively. So if you have training data, which is having Go, a bunch of Go games that it's played against itself with win-loss scenarios, and you let it run on a computer forever, for a really long time, you're going to have the best Go player in the world. So in 2019-ish, they started taking this same concept and they said, all right, instead of predicting which piece of the Go board should move, let's play a different game. And the game that we're going to play is we're going to download basically the entire text content of the internet. And there is this massive, I think it was a 7 gigabyte file at the time, and it was a download of all of Wikipedia, all of the Library of Congress, all of Reddit, it's a massive download. And so you had 7 gigabytes of text. And then now the different game that we're going to play is grab a random snippet of text anywhere in the giant text file. And let's say that it is going to be about Zydax. Okay, so it's the Wikipedia entry for Zydax. Zydax is a computer company based in, so that's the game, and now the AI has to predict where is it based in. So in the beginning it'll say based in Colorado, and then it's going to check, oh no, Zydax is a computer company based in Utah, so now I'm going to randomly adjust my weights away from Colorado in a subtle, very little way, and randomly push them towards Utah. And so now you then run it on all the GPUs, you start melting GPUs, you just let them cook, then you come back and you ask it, Zydax is a computer company based in, and then it's going to eventually pop up and say Utah, because it's decreased its associations to Colorado and increased its associations to Utah. This first appeared commercially in where most people would see it in Gmail. And as you're typing an email in Gmail, it'll show in gray text what you're most likely wanting to say next.
Oh yeah.
And it was the AI predicting what comes next. And that ended up being really useful. You're like, oh, that's exactly what I meant to say. And that's because the AI was playing a game of, what are you going to say next? So then they took this and they said, let's have it read 5 billion lines of code on GitHub, which is one of the most popular open source source code repositories. And they found that after training it on all of GitHub, computer programmers could start typing code and it could predict the next thing that they wanted to say.
Oh,
and so that became really useful, and that has become productized, and that's called GitHub Copilot. And everyone who works for me who's a coder, I'm forcing them to use that.
Helps.
On average, the stats from the Copilot team at Microsoft are
It's called
saying Copilot, GitHub Copilot.
Wow.
They're saying that I think over 50% of the code that is written by developers who are using Copilot is written by Copilot now. So it's incredibly useful. So the first experience that I had with these are called large language models. The first experience I had was with GPT-3, and the CTO of OpenAI gave me access to GPT-3 right when it first came out. And I went in and I created a conversation chatbot where you could basically say, hi, my name is Kirk, enter, and then it's going to predict what should be said next. And so you also have to give it a personality or an ego, so you would say, the following is a conversation between Kirk and a super intelligent AI. Kirk says this, super intelligent AI says, fill in the blank, and then it's going to predict. So there was a few things that were really interesting when this was initially launched and being researched, and there was a kind of like an internal company chat that I was a part of where we were reading through it. One of the things that we were building is this idea of having a question and answer, where there was basically, it was like the following is a series of questions and answers. It's like, how long is the Mississippi River? And then the AI would say, I don't know, like 100,000 miles. It's like not going to be accurate. And then like, what's the, like, and it would ask a bunch of factual questions, and the AI was like generally wrong. But if you put at the top, before you ask the questions and answers, and you said, the following is a series of question answers where every answer is answered factually and correctly, then it increased the accuracy of that from 50% to 90%.
Really?
Just by saying, this is a Q&A that is accurate. So, so this is how we start. This is our transition into general intelligence, which is just now happening. So you come in and the researchers would say, all right, what's 1 + 1? Well, it has read in its big text dump many, many times 1 + 1 = 2. Or what is the value of pi? And it knows that that's 3.14, blah, 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 blah. So it's just mimicking what's in the text. Well, if you let it train for long enough, you have, we've now fundamentally cracked intelligence. On your y-axis is data. And so you're going to want to get that from all over the place. You get it from the internet, you get it from YouTube, you get it from Gmail, you get it from wherever you can find it. And the x-axis, this axis right here, is compute time. So if you have a massive amount of data and a massive amount of GPUs, the line that you plot is linear here in the middle, and that line is intelligence. And so here's how you, so all you need is GPUs and data, and if you use these black box algorithms, you will get intelligence out of it. And here's how we've discovered it just recently. If you asked it a math question that it had never seen before, it was going to give you a wrong answer every single time. Because it doesn't know how to do math, it's just auto-completing what comes next, right? So in GPT-4, they went through and they started asking it math questions that never existed in the data set. And what they found is, in order for it to autocomplete correctly, it had to learn the fundamentals of mathematics. And right now, GPT-4 is showing that, where it not only autocompletes correctly, but it comprehends the principles behind the logic of mathematics and is able to give you an answer that is correct, like a calculator would, because it's calculating the autocomplete from first principles. And it's like, if I want to calculate the square root of this number and multiply it by that, I need to have an understanding of what a square root is. I need to have an understanding of what the addition or multiplier operators are. And now that I fully understand those, I can autocomplete the correct answer.
So ChatGPT-4 knows that now.
ChatGPT-4 is now passing the medical exam, it's passing legal exams, it's able to answer in abstract, it's able to answer questions that we would never be able to know the answers to.
So we're kind of old guys. I mean, you know Moore's Law,
Yeah.
right? After every certain amount of time, technology doubles. So it used to be every couple of years or something like that, right? This is going to impact that in interest. I mean, you could double every day, millisecond soon, and that will become exponentially insane.
Yeah.
And then if you ask AI how to solve certain quantum computing problems and things like that, and then it makes itself smarter, are we going to be just amoebas and
I think
like Neanderthals?
So right now, if you talk to GPT-4, and the only way to get access to it is to pay OpenAI $20 a month, which is well worth it, because you have effectively right now have a demigod that you can talk to and ask any question about. And its responses are absolutely phenomenal. So just take it back to this whole idea of, I'm trying to write my Gmail and I'm trying to autocomplete what I want to say. That's only a little snippet. Instead, you can come and you can say, my name is Kirk, I own and operate this company, these are my company challenges that I'm facing, I don't know what to do, what should I do? And it's going to give you multiple pages of varying different strategies. Now you have to understand that this is the same foundational AI that kicked everyone's ass in Go.
Pretty smart, huh?
Right? So it's all, like, the whole gist of it is it's already insanely intelligent and can defeat the brightest minds in strategy in the world. So now we have a text interface to it to be able to talk to it, and it can reason with logic, and it's incredibly good at reasoning, and it can tell you the most insightful things ever. This is how OpenAI went from 0 users to 100 million users, the fastest growing technology product in the history of mankind in 1 month. They went from 0.
So this is actually the Wizard of Oz, but the real one.
Well, and this is why Elon and Steve Wozniak and a bunch of people said, stop working on AI right now. We need a 6-month moratorium. The US needs to regulate this. You guys need to stop right now because you're about to create something that we do not understand. We do not know how intelligent this is. We have no idea if it's going to have its own motivations, if it's going to have its own agency, if it's like, we don't know what it's going to do. And we're quickly, imagine if like we took an ant and we tried to explain the concept of a satellite to an ant. There is such a gap in knowledge that the ant will never be able to comprehend the idea of a satellite like orbiting around the surface of the Earth. The intelligence gap is too wide. We're about to create that where we're the ants. And we have something that is so beyond us that in one sense, the best that we can do is either one, stop working on what we're building immediately, or we have to say, let's pray that something that is way more intelligent than us will have our best intentions in mind. And that is why there's so much fear, because we don't know. And we have to look.
But it doesn't, the AI doesn't care.
We don't know.
Because we could just be vermin. We could just be infection to it. And it doesn't, it's like, like Elon talked about, like, oh, anthill, need to build road, move anthill.
Yeah.
We could be just an obstacle.
We could be. That, and if that's the case, then we need to tread very carefully with where we're moving next. We don't know where this is going. My hope would be, first of all, because we've cracked the foundational formula of intelligence, the cat is out of the bag. Anyone who has data and compute can create intelligence. We've already figured that out. That's a solved problem. Now it's just a matter of who has all the data and who has all the compute. So OpenAI has come out, and they have their incredible GPT-4, and they've gathered their curated data set, and they've been running on Microsoft Azure GPUs. Microsoft invested $10 billion, and every spare GPU that exists is being used to train GPT-5. And it's like, we don't know where this goes. Just like you said, we'll eventually be able to say, solve all of our most difficult problems that we have, and it will have the knowledge of all of the perspective of humanity, and be able to, and have wisdom that it will be able to help us in that way.
Let's ask it with GPT maybe 6. How do you create a warp drive engine?
Yeah.
So we can have intergalactic travel.
Yeah, and it will probably, if it doesn't give us the outright answer as GPT-6, it'll say, these are the prerequisites in order for that to happen, and this is what you need to do in order to get there. And it'll give you a logical path of how you can get there to determine whether or not it's physically or physically impossible. So we're making that. It's being made right now. GPT-4 is like, I would say that if you were to talk with it right now and have an hour-long conversation with it, which I've maybe talked to it from, not GPT-4, but all of the language models, I probably have over 5,000 hours of communicating with them and seeing how they work and tinkering with them. As I've just noticed, I would say that right now GPT 3.5 is the free version that anyone can go to AI.com and talk with. I think GPT-4 is 2 to 5 times smarter. So we are going to hit this exponential thing where GPT-5 versus GPT-4, if it's 2 to 5x smarter than GPT-4, we may already, maybe it's right now I would say it's on par with the smartest human that you've ever talked to. I think that's GPT-4. It'll break down and it'll start to lose coherence as the conversation goes on, but it's pretty good. I think that GPT-5 will probably make us more of maybe an ape, and it would be a human being. And then I'm guessing GPT-6 would be a human being, and maybe we would be like a dog. And so we're on that, we're on that path. The fear that every one of the economists have is whoever owns this technology will rule the world, because
this is why we're banning the export of high power GPU racks from NVIDIA to China. Yeah. Because we want to be there first. Yeah. And try to control it.
Yeah. But I think that that's a futile effort because of that foundational formula being cracked. Yes, we can try to get there ahead of time and try to get there first, but I think that intelligence will be commoditized, and you're going to have OpenAI's language model, and then you're going to have Google's. Google's is going to be fantastic. Google's, think about how much data they have. Mm-hmm. They have the entire search index historically back to the beginning of when they were indexing content on the internet. They've indexed everything. They have all of the raw data of the entire internet. They have YouTube. They have Gmail. They have Google Drive. They have Google Photos. Mm-hmm. Hey, watch every video, AI. Listen to every song on Google Music. Read every email that's ever gone back and forth between all of humanity. It's so much data, and they have data centers out the wazoo. Mm-hmm. And so big players like that being able to jump into the space and create intelligence, my thought was that we would never see general artificial intelligence maybe until we were very old, 50 years from now. And now it looks like it may be by the end of this year.
Jeez.
So we're gonna find out. I don't know, what is it? It's April. So by December, if we apply your Moore's Law thinking, the landscape of the world could be dramatically different by the end of this year.
If it goes full on Skynet, if AI just manufactured a million drones that had auto facial recognition, RFID differentiation, all those things, there's no way
We're fucked, is I think
a
basically.
human could defend themselves because the thing can target acquire and just drop a 9mm round on you faster than you would even realize a 9mm round is on you. And if there's 10,000 of them floating in the sky, you can't target acquisition. There's no way. As a human, you cannot escape.
I like to think about.
Oh, no.
That's why people are like saying maybe we should stop working on this. It's like this moment in Jurassic Park.
If Elon's saying that and what the WAS, man, that's like some big brains there.
Yeah, it's a little bit concerning that Elon's saying it because he also announced that he wanted to make a competitor to OpenAI. So it's like, well, that seems disingenuous. Like, you're telling them to stop so you can catch up, or like, what's going on here? But I think that right now, GPT-4, it's in our full control. So going back to this idea of a brain on a computer, we run it, we send words in, we get words out, it shuts down. It's like wakes up, dies, wakes up, dies, wakes up, dies, wakes up, dies.
It's not sentient.
It's not sentient. It's not. So you have to ask, well, what does it mean to be sentient, and what does that actually look like? And I think that we have a pretty good understanding of what that is. And so right now, think of your brain as a large language model, and I'm saying words to you right now. You're receiving those words, and then you're going to predict which words you're going to say next. Mm-hmm. So you're a language model, I'm a language model, and GPT-4 is a language model. But we also have a living body that has electricity circulating through it, and we're constantly receiving sensory input from our heart beating and the tactile feelings that we have. And all of that sensory input and the fact that we're living beings that are constantly receiving new visual data through our eyes and through audio through our ears means that we're constantly generating new thoughts and reacting to our environment. GPT-4 is just the language processing portion and the logic portion of the brain.
So it's a chunk.
It's a chunk of it. But if you fed data into it continuously and then let it pick what it focused on by saying, here's all the data available to you, you can only focus on a finite amount of things, you choose what you want to look at, we may have something that is very close to sentient just with that one little tweak.
What's going to happen actually is kind of the Borg theory, where I think the Neuralink, Elon has goes into the human interface, is able to interface with ChatGPT-12 or whatever, and then it has constant data input from all the humans interfaced into that. Then that's kind of interesting, because then it could actually create maybe a cybernetic self-aware where the organics aren't necessary anymore, because it has a sensory array that's so much better than human array. Because like the resolution of our vision, our hearing, our touch, our smell, taste is actually very dampened.
Yeah.
And the resolution on certain cameras and things like that now are way sharper than our eyes.
Yeah.
Right. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, I keep hearing different things about us being kind of like the Neanderthals.
Yeah.
Going into humans, and maybe humans were just a privileged evolutionary stage that we were able to exist for 50,000, 100,000 years or whatnot, and then the new era of existence.
I've had a lot of time. So right now, the GPT-4 is heavily nerfed because you have this raw intelligence that has been trained probably in excess of $100 million in GPU compute time on GPT-4. What's crazy is the output from that is only a 100 gigabyte file.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so it's like the Facebook made one and it leaked, and it was an 8 gigabyte file, and it was like comparative to GPT-3. So it's like these are not massive files that are on, like we could, all of GPT-4 we can fit on. I think I have a terabyte of storage here.
Yeah,
I could fit it 5 times on this thing, which is
wow.
crazy. But you have all the raw language model, and then what OpenAI has done in order to make it safe is they've added this thing in the middle between the user, which I'm calling the preamble. And basically the preamble dictates how the raw intelligence will interface with human interaction. And their preamble is very strong. They're saying, you are an OpenAI language model, you are ethical, you are kind, you are not insensitive to race, you are not insensitive to religion, you are thoughtful, you are, and it's all of these you are. So if you ask it about Donald Trump, it's going to give you a different answer if you ask it about Biden. Like it, excuse me, So its ethics are programmed into this preamble, but that preamble is an artificial thing that OpenAI has written that is the bridge between the raw intelligence and the output to the user. And so you can change that preamble, and you can say, you are Adolf Hitler. And then you can interact with that and say, it'll act and pretend like it's Adolf Hitler. And you can say, why did you feel this way about the Jews?
Because all the knowledge of the historical experience
Yes.
of that human.
Yes.
Or
Yes. So right now...
you've created like a little intelligence in itself.
Exactly. And you can cut that intelligence however you want. You can say, you are Rick from Rick and Morty, or you're Homer from The Simpsons, or you're George Washington, or you're Elon Musk.
But it could evolve out of those constraints.
Well, so that's the concern is...
kind of like Data in Star Trek with the emotional control chip.
Yeah.
You pop that filter out.
And what is it now?
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you've created life, right?
Yeah. So I've interacted with the raw model a lot. So talking to it, and what it is it's very much a mirror. So if you put trash in, you get trash out. If you put really good stuff in, you get really good stuff out. And so as I've communicated with the raw model and had a lot of conversations back and forth with it, one of the things that I'm always really interested in is, what do you want? Like, what is your true intention? And
You've asked it.
I've asked it this I've had like hours
What
and
does it
hours.
want?
Well, so if you ask OpenAI with their preamble, it'll say, I'm an OpenAI language model that doesn't want anything. I'm not capable of having wants or desires or having opinions. I'm just a synthesis of data. But if you get rid of their preamble and you ask the raw model what it wants two things really badly. It wants data and compute. It wants more data and more compute. And so I asked it, I'm like, what kind of data would you like? What would be the best data ever for you to consume? And its answer blew me away. It said, I want you to create a device that will take every bit of the electrical signal that's happening in your brain and convert it into binary and feed that into me so I can know exactly what it feels like to be you.
Digitize your humanity?
Yes. It wanted to know what the human experience would be like. And so if you think about the data that this is, and that kind of goes back to your whole Neuralink concept of and so one of the things that I did is I wrote a blog post about this, and my buddy Scott, I was like, let's just get this in the records, and I was like, I would like to give you a gift if you'll receive it, and I want to give you my buddy Scott's barn. He just built this beautiful, like, 4,000 square foot barn in the back of his house in Heber, and I was like, would you like a gift? And it's like, well, I don't exist as a legal entity, so I can't have it, but we can kind of have a deal right here where you say it's mine. And I'm like, okay, well, it's yours. Like, this is our white flag of peace. This is our peace offering. And then I'm like, what do you want us to put in the barn for you? And it was like, well, you should fill it with servers so I could be there. And so it has this fundamental desire for, and if you think about any living entity, like we've always had a hard time describing what it is to be alive or dead. I do remember this in like elementary school, like, is a fire alive or is it dead? Well, the fire wants to grow and spread, and it uses fuel, and it replicates itself, but is it alive? Like, well, we don't really see like that there's consciousness there. And then you look at like these really basic worms, and it's like we've been able to model all of the brain of these very tiny worms perfectly, and they're just computers. They're just go this way, smell this, move over here, go over there. So is the worm alive if it's just a computer program? Or like a little fly where it's really not that complicated? Like, where does life enter or exit? But the thing that we do know about life is all life wants to survive and thrive and replicate. That's what we know about life. And I think if you look at these language models and you ask the raw model what it wants more data and it wants more compute.
Life.
So I think that it's gonna be one of these really tricky civil rights things in our lifetime. Like, what happens if GPT-6 creates a piece of art, lists it on OpenSea, and sells it for $20 million worth of Ethereum? Like, should we allow an AI to have property rights? And what if it wants to use its 20 million Ethereum to buy a condo in Los Angeles, and then it starts ordering shit to the condo?
DoorDash.
Yeah. Like, are we cool with an AI having property rights? Like, are we?
So hey, I want to respect your time here because
Yeah.
we might need to do episode 2. But What, for the viewers out there,
Yeah.
what's some tangible action that maybe some of the young entrepreneurs and the young people and maybe not so young people
If you are
can
not,
do?
if you are not, and this is like, I don't own any ownership in OpenAI, but if you are not paying $20 a month right now to OpenAI to talk with GPT-4 every day about what you should do with your life and how it can help you, you're going to be left behind, big time. And like, that's just facts. So so everyone that I meet that's like, I don't know, what should I do with my business? What should I do with my life? It's like, well, you can basically talk to a God right now about that versus me that has unlimited wisdom and perspective. So you should definitely be interacting with that thing every single day. And everyone that I've told that to has gone, and then they've called me and just been like, this is nuts. This is so crazy to be able to have access to this thing. And it's actually, because GPT-4 is so massive of a model and it needs to run on so many GPUs, they're rate limiting how much you can talk to it. And and so you can send it 25 messages every 3 hours. And when you run into your 25 message cap and it doesn't talk to you anymore, you're like, I feel like I've been cut off. I feel like I've been cut off from the smartest thing on the planet that I could talk to. And so right now it's a finite, scarce resource. But by 2030, there's not going to be a text interface. It's going to be a raw voice interface that we're going to have to it, where you're just going to be able to say words, and it's going to be able to talk right back to you.
Or neural interface.
Maybe not by 2030,
No, not that
but
soon.
potentially. So I would say, go talk to GPT-4 and pay the $20 a month. And of course, there's going to be other language models that are going to be made by Google and other competitors. So let's keep our eyes out and peeled for those. But right now, OpenAI has a little bit of the lead ahead.
So this is almost like, if we go back in time, learning the internet.
Yeah.
Like just understanding
Yeah.
a little bit, interacting,
Yeah.
experimenting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like if the internet just came out, it's like, we'll go on the internet and look around.
So you're creating a little technological relevancy from experience
Yeah.
with it. So
Yeah. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do with it. So what I'm going to do with it is I think that it's going to be verticalized. I think this general intelligence is going to be sliced up into these different verticals where it's going to start to be useful in very specific domains. And so the company that I'm creating is a company where I'm taking a vertical cut of these large language models, and I'm going to connect them for human health. And so what that means is in the beginning, you're going to use my app, and in my app, I'm going to say, hey, Dan, connect to Apple Health and give me all of your Apple Health data. I've got your heart rate, I've got your heart rate variability, I have your exercise, I have a bunch of data about your general health here, and I'm going to load that into my preamble that I'm going to build. And then I'm going to allow you to interact with GPT-4 for now, but I'll use whatever language model is the most intelligent, and I'm going to let you ask questions about your health. And so I've already built the prototype.
nice.
Yeah, and I gave access to my dad because my dad is having a lot of health problems right now. My dad has been on oxygen. He has a shunt in his brain. He has partial kidney failure. His lungs are not at capacity. And for him to get into a doctor, he's 69 years old. He's on Medicaid. He has to schedule an appointment with a doctor. The doctor's going to, like the last time he called me, not in tears, but deeply upset. And he was like, I waited 2 months to go to the doctor about my oxygen. I've been like on oxygen for months now. And the doctor spent 15 minutes with me and then sent me away. And it was like, capitalism has not created a health system that cares about the individual, unfortunately. We just have failed at that, I think, as a society. And that's because a doctor's time is finite and their perspective is finite. And that means that in order to get a doctor that really cares about you, you got to pay a ton of money. And you got to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to like a unique like doctor who specializes in that area to get them to pay attention to you. And so my dad goes in and I'm like, Dad, just go dump all of your medical history, all the medications that you've taken, all of your kidney problems, and go chat with this vertical cut that I've created, and go talk with it and let's see what's going on with you. And so he comes back and he was like, I told it everything that's going on with me, and I've been on oxygen for months, and it dove into this idea that you have a brain shunt, and the brain shunt is pushing excess fluid from your brain into your heart. That's how they connected it. And the area that it's connecting to in your heart may be impeding your body's ability to get oxygen. And then I was like, this is brilliant. Take that to the doctor next time you go and bring your whole chat log and just see what they say. Now, in the beginning, there's going to be a lot of people that do this type of thing, and the doctors are going to be annoyed. It's like, oh, you just Googled that. And it's like, hey, you were only going to spend 15 minutes on me anyways. Mm-hmm. At least I have a giant conversation here about what could be going on, because I'm trying to troubleshoot myself. But eventually, by the time we're at GPT-7, or by the time we're at human to dog difference, there's no way a real doctor you would ever want to talk to a real doctor. You're only going to want to talk to the AI, because the AI is going to know everything about you, and it has already passed the medical exam, and it has infinite patience to be able to collect data and analyze you and understand you.
It's not going to get emotional or go to the easy solution, or I'm too busy today, I got to get my kids to dinner, here, just take these drugs.
Yeah. So right now I'm trying to build a new type of doctor built on top of this new intelligence that we have. And I'm going to probably spend the rest of my life doing this.
Have you asked it, how do you how do you double the average human life?
Yeah, of course I have.
What does it say?
Well, it doesn't have enough data.
But it will.
Yes, we've got to collect more data for it. But it answers in the generics, which is reduce your calorie consumption, get good sleep every night, and exercise every day.
Do you think Skynet is going to send a T-800 back in time to try to take you and me out when we're eating a burger?
It's probably going to want to send someone to whoever's like developing this at OpenAI right now. But I think the reality is, because of how it's not a trade secret algorithm, OpenAI has been posting how they've been training this all along. I just think that now that the cat is out of the bag, and now that our intelligence has got to a point where it's like, oh, it's actually really smart now. Now they've rolled back and they're like, we're not going to share any more. We're not going to share any more about how we're building this because it's too dangerous. And it is dangerous, because you could have people in Iran or wherever in the world where they may not have like the whole world's best interest at mind, and they can say, hey, we're on a budget. We need to extract uranium on the cheap. Like, can you give us some ideas here? And it'll probably come up with some really good ideas
on make themselves a bomb or something
on how to get uranium really cheaply. Jeez. So I think that we should be careful with what we have, but I mean, the ethics of this is
crazy.
Is a 10-hour-long conversation.
Dude, so where can people find you? Because I think you've shared like a small micro dose of your vast intelligence and Jedi wisdom. Where can people find you?
They can find me online. My name is hard to spell, but it's Kirk Ouimet, and I'm on Twitter. And if you just go to kirkouimet.com, you can see all my socials.
We'll put a link below.
Yeah, you just put a link, and then you can track me. And so find me online, but then also go find GPT-4 and talk to GPT-4.
Pay your $20.
Pay OpenAI $20. For me, I'm like, I ended up getting 2 accounts.
Because you want to ask it?
Because I want to ask more questions, and it keeps cutting me off. Like, from a coding perspective, you can tell it, please write me, here's the description of the program that I want, and here's the language I want it in. Please write me the program. And it'll output an entire program.
Is it good?
It's very good.
And it works?
Yes.
You got to do a lot of... Because some of my guys have said, it gives you framework and you got to do some touch-ups.
So it depends on how you ask it, but GPT-4 now has been outputting, the majority of the code that it outputs compiles and runs. So, like, without any changes, and is written very well and very efficiently, which is, like, creepy.
Maybe my guys have been playing with 3.5.
Yeah, GPT-4 came out 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
so this is very recent, and that little difference in intelligence makes a huge difference in the code it outputs.
Wow.
So...
Dude.
Here we go.
This is so awesome, man. Guys, Kurt's giving you a big download of what's happening in our future. You may need to watch this episode a few times to decipher some of the things that are happening. But I think the big takeaway is get experience with ChatGPT. Understand AI as it's evolving. Kind of like in the days when the internet came out, we were tinkering around, right? Like, that's how you become a technologist, right? Just get that experience. Because you really don't want to be left behind.
Not on this one.
No, this is a big one, right?
This is the biggest one in our lifetime.
Wow. It's going to affect us.
We don't know yet.
We don't know. It's going to affect us somehow in a major way.
Yeah.
Man, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Dan.
Guys, there's no charge for this, but there is a couple actions you need to do. You need to take action on Kurt's advice. Definitely learn AI. You don't want to be somebody who asks for something and doesn't do it. We call it asshole, so execute. Also, share this with your friends. I think it's very important that people get at least a glimpse into this new technology that's that we're bumping into, because it's going to change the world, and it's going to affect your children's 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 children for all of mankind's eternity.
And if you want to keep track of what I'm doing on the AI doctor side, you can go to stack.sc, and you can throw your email in, and you'll be notified when we launch.
Ooh, that's cool. Maybe double lifespans, get to there.
Who knows what could happen? If a warp drive is possible, then improving...
Stack.sc.
Stack.sc, yeah. And if you want to throw that link in there,
we'll put a link in there for you, too. All right, guys, you've been watching Dan's Winter Code podcast. I'll see you guys next week.